We are up and running. Welcome to Philosophy for Free on Sundays. Okay, so first things first, we are going to give a quick review of last week before I introduce this mysterious guest beside me. So last week we covered the principles of chiropractic. So the principles are the unchanging laws that govern the natural world that we live in. So these are things that have been the same for the last 3,000, 10,000, whatever thousand years that govern where we live. Like for an example, principle 17, cause and effect. Very basic principle. When you choose to do something such as have a family, there's going to be effects to that. When you choose to pursue an education in chiropractic, there are effects. It's a very general basic principle, and it's a good example of how all the principles are. They're just general principles that govern the natural world. There are truths. And actually, I'm just going to jump right to introducing our guest here.
Give me 1 second before you introduce.
Absolutely.
We got some people arriving.
We got some people
Come
arriving.
on up, guys. Latecomers.
Hey, oh my goodness. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome. Kurt and Naomi in the house.
I saw you guys driving a couple weeks ago.
He saw them driving a couple weeks ago.
We do that. So I don't know where it was, but I saw it.
Awesome. Actually, before we introduce him, today's talk is going to be understanding the misunderstandings. And one of the misunderstandings that I'd like to address first is the chiropractic was thought to be unscientific at some time. Somehow that information was spread around. And I'm like 20 pages into the Chiropractor's Adjuster, which is Didi's book, the founder. And this guy's obsession with science is palpable. Like, it's absolutely incredible. The thing about science, though, is it is constantly evolving. Same with art, the application. Philosophy is not. And Didi acknowledged that right from the start, that he can't wait to see how our science evolves to better deliver specificity in our care. Yeah. So I think he would be super pumped to see where we are at today with our science in neurology, osteology, and function. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to our speaker, Alex Lee, who is a chiropractor of chiropractors, in my opinion. And he's going to be covering some more of the misunderstandings and kind of clearing the foundation for understanding the philosophy and where we come from. Alex Lee.
Thanks. I expected a round of applause, but it's okay. No. Okay. Before I really get into what I want to talk about today, obviously there's a lot of weird things kind of like happening in the world, right? If you go on social media, you just go outside, right? There's a lot of things that are, I don't know, could seem on the surface to like get you down and not really give you any hope. So I went home a couple weeks ago. I went back to Boston and I saw my folks for the first time since Christmas. So this whole, whatever you want to call it, started in March. And I saw them beginning of August, so like 4.5 months basically. And what had been happening was they've been believing the news. They've been believing everything that everybody's been talking about. They've been scared. All their input has been fear, everyone's dying, cases are going up, like everything in like red, exclamation marks, just like in your face, right? And I kind of compared it to pretty much putting someone in solitary confinement and then only playing CNN, like nonstop. And that's been their reality for like 4.5 months. They've been afraid, they've been living, so I went and I sat and I saw a newspaper, and one of the subheadings was Microsoft to acquire TikTok. And I was like, well, no shit, huh? Like, yeah, okay. And they were like, what do you think of that? What's up, Brandon? Brandon Collins Bride, everybody.
Say hi. Hello.
And they were like, what do you think of that? And it turned into an hour-long talk, starting from pretty much the major premise of chiropractic and deductively worked down to how coronavirus is bullshit and they should go outside and take their masks off. So that's kind of the story I'm going to tell right now. And I felt comfortable doing it. And it was like it was the clearest conversation I ever had with my parents and like the most emotional depth that we ever went into. But when you just step back and look at like chiropractic philosophy, right? They say like, Subluxation is caused by inability to adapt to thoughts, traumas, toxins. And you're reading Dee's Chiropractic Adjuster, right? So, I mean, Dee said that the worst subluxation is the emotional subluxation, right? And immediately when I had this conversation with my parents and was able to look at them, and for the first time they heard in like 4.5 months that they're like strong people and that their bodies can handle this and that they've made it through 60 something years of life already, and they're going to continue to as long as they, you know, put good thoughts in their mind and start to change this idea that they have in their head that they're doomed, right? I saw like all of a sudden it looked like my parents were each like 10 pounds lighter, and I just felt like the turtleneck that I'd been wearing for like a couple weeks leading up to that trip was just off. So I want to take that into account, and you know, I've felt incredible for the last 2 weeks and just like on fire, and like everything's just like going, and that's just like baggage that's like go. Like I'm sure if I stepped on a scale, I'd be like 5 pounds lighter too. Like you hold that in your body somewhere too. Not that I have really much more to lose, but it's a workout. So but point is, I feel clear. And then the more I was thinking about it, I went to a zone technique seminar last weekend, and that's all about getting the body in balance and then having good concepts in the mind, right? And when the body's balanced, you have good concepts and imaging, you heal. Like you can't have that state and a state of disease or sickness or whatever. You can't have those two coexist in the same person, the same entity. So what I kind of came to in my head was like, obviously I'm proud that I'm a chiropractor and I wouldn't change anything, and I would still go back and be a chiropractor. But kind of disappointed that we all are spending $250,000 on learning just how to detect and correct the trauma part, right? The thoughts, traumas, toxins, just the trauma. We get like maybe a little bit of like toxins, right? Like heat cleaner, and like, I don't know, you feel up here and like down by the kidneys, and there's like a different tone in the body, right? We don't get like anything on the emotional part. And we get so inundated at school with just like this educated brain, just like always in test mode, just like all this, and we lose like what one of the biggest ideas is in chiropractic, which is just letting innate like flow out of us, right? When we're clear. Innate. I think you, for some reason, you're innate to me. So if I could go back, I'd still go to chiropractic school, but I would read this book first. Like I would have just gotten this and like kept it on my bedside for like 3.5 years and just referred back to this. So I've read a bunch of green books. This is Sinnett's textbook, Chiropractic Philosophy, Volume 1. I don't know where the camera is. It's over here. So it's only Bert, and he's not even looking. Okay, anyway. Sinnett's textbook of Chiropractic Philosophy. Volume 1, I didn't know there was a second volume until I recorded the video for Hunter today. And then Nate was like, yeah, we got a volume 2. So anyway, this was written in 2000s. So you think of Stevenson writing in like 1920s, and you get to like the analogies of the virtuous banker, and like, you know, you get to all that and your eyes are crossed and you're like, someone's got to update this. So once I put that out there and I said something, someone was like, oh yeah, just check out the Sims book. It's already there. I couldn't get it at the bookstore. I got it online on some like bootleg printer, but it came like 2 weeks later. Now I have it. So I read it, and there's a few parts in here that I want to go over. And one, if you've been around anyone who talks chiropractic philosophy, you understand that we have like a unique terminology in our profession. And there's a lot of words that mean one thing in chiropractic and they mean something completely different in another profession, like subluxation, right? And that can get really confusing. So this is chapter 3. It says, it's titled Terminology. So I'm just going to read a quote, and this is probably the only thing I'll read from in here. But it says, if one wished to kill a profession to remove its cohesion and its strength, the most effective way would be to forbid the use of its characteristic language. So most effective way would be to forbid the use of its characteristic language. So if someone wanted a chiropractic to die or to break up or whatever, right? Call whatever you want. Words like dis-ease, right? Subluxation, like other words that are just part of our vernacular would be gone, like get rid of it. And there's even people within the profession that want to get rid of it. All good, like still gotta love them. We're still doing the same thing, but we're kind of doing something different. And this just popped into my head. I don't know why it's important, but as a profession, we need to unite, and I don't think we'll ever unite around the philosophy. Sucks, but whatever. Like we can stay there. But this was a proverb that I heard a long, long time ago, and it was, I don't know literally why it just popped into my head, but it was me against my brother, me and my brother against my cousin, and me and my brother and my cousin against the world. I might have gotten that last part wrong, but point is, right, if there's other chiropractors that you don't agree with, that's still your brother, like within the profession, right? We need to stay together somehow and find some sort of commonality, right? And this stuff isn't too far-fetched. Like, there's a little bit of a difference in application, but if you look at, 10 chiropractors, they could all be doing, like, untrained eye might have no idea what's going on, right? All the same. So, point of that is the way that we kind of frame it to our patients, the way that we frame it, the way that we teach. So yeah, terminology is really important. I'm going to go over two things. These are like the big 2 points that I got. Everybody still with me? There's no one's heat stroke. I passed out from the smoke. We're good. Okay, cool. So first thing, if we're going to define chiropractic, there's like the cornerstone definition in Stevenson, and a lot of us know it verbatim, right? Chiropractic is a philosophy, science, and art of things natural, system of adjusting the segments of the spinal column by hand only for the correction of the cause of dis-ease. Which is a great definition. It's just, if someone would be like, hey, you're a chiropractor, what's chiropractic? You wouldn't just say that. Like, they'd be like, I'm double parked. Like, my Uber's here, I gotta go. So, because there's things in that, literally, each part of that, there's 3 parts of that. Each thing has a really confusing, like, thing that's misunderstood. So I'm gonna go into each of those. So chiropractic is philosophy, science, and art of things natural. Things natural, a lot of people are like, okay, let's just go to the next part of this so that I can forget that things natural is even said. Things natural just means non-religious. So philosophy, science, and art of things not supernatural, so non-religious. So, comma. Okay. System of adjusting the segments of the spinal column by hand only. So by hand only, people are like, whoa, is it activator? Like, that's not chiropractic, like all this. No, by hand only just means by non-surgical means. So it just means not adding or subtracting anything from the body, not taking anything out, not cutting it open. So activator, epic, torque release, all of that fall in because it's still honoring the body's innate intelligence, helping it reorganize, and not adding or subtracting anything. So chiropractic, philosophy, science, and art of things non-religious, system of adjusting the segments of the spinal column by non-surgical means for the correction of the cause of incoordination caused by vertebral subluxation. So if we're looking at one word that, like, to me defines chiropractic, it's coordination, right? We're looking at a body and we're trying to say, okay, is this body healthy, right? If the body has coordination, if it has proper ease, right, good health, then the body, when it has to do something, should be able to do it. And if the body is in incoordination, right, dis-ease, in bad health, the body's supposed to do something it can't. Period. Stop there. But that's what the definition. So chiropractic, philosophy, science, and art of things non-religious, system of adjusting the segments of the spinal column by non-surgical means for the correction of the cause of incoordination caused by vertebral subluxation. So that's pretty good right there. And that was honestly, like, I went through school and I'd like hear some people at seminars being like, one cause, one cure, and that's my next part. I'll just go into it. There's all this terminology, right, that's confusing. So I want to at least open up the conversation to some other confusing terms. And there's a glossary in the back, and I'm not going to pretend that I know everything. That's a really powerful thing to also take on yourself. Just be like, someone asks you, like, man, I don't know. Let's look it up, like, right here. So another thing that I heard that, like, irked me so much, it was before I even started school. And I'll go into that right now. Before I started school, I was a business economics major in undergrad. I was an athlete. I had an injury, and I went to chiropractor, and I went to 2 before I went to one that talked to any sort of principle. Right? And the one that I went to that started talking about principle identified in me. I was like, hey, I was told him my background. He was like, well, like, you understand, like, the economy of your body, right? And I was like, yeah, like, go on. He's like, yeah, but I have no idea what he's talking about. Like, yeah, go on. He's like, well, your body has an innate intelligence, right? It's always trying to keep you in active organization and keep everything coordinated, right? Between brain through the spinal cord, out every nerve to every cell tissue organ in the body. And I was like, yeah, okay, makes sense. And he's like, so what I'm doing here is trying to help get everything back in coordination, back in proper alignment, proper motion, so that your body can be in coordination, so that the economy of your innate intelligence can do its thing, right? There's nerve supply that needs to go to certain parts of the body. There's nourishment that needs to go to other parts of the body. And the economy of your innate intelligence is what does that. And he's like, probably studied supply and demand. And I was like, yeah, but don't like ask me any follow-up questions because I don't remember like any like graphs or any of that. And he's like, cool, you don't need to know. Just if you know that, you understand chiropractic better than 99% of the world. I was like, cool. And then about a year later, I was like, well, that's that innate thing has been stuck in my head for so long. I just got to go be a chiropractor, I guess, right? Like, what else am I going to do? I'm going to wake up and be 50 and be like, why didn't I go do that thing that I'm always talking about to everybody? So, one thing that I heard was one cause, one cure. This is before going to school. I might even been at the Wave right before I started, so it would have been like August 2016. And someone was on stage and they were really like animated and it was cool. And they were just like, one cause, one cure, and everyone was like, yeah. And I was like, what? Like, because I was all up on like, subluxation and like all this. And I'm just like, and then I heard it throughout school too a few other times, and I was just like, does that mean like one cause is subluxation and one cure is the adjustment? I was like, that can't be right. Like, there's people that have lived over 100 years in like every country. They've never seen chiropractic before. Like, that can't be it. And I heard it a few more times, and each time I was like, it's got this like nerve rage. I was like, what is going on? Like, this is wrong. Like, so I dove into it. Anyway, this was like end of this, and I finally read it, and I was like, oh, thank God. Like, thank God I got cleared up. It wasn't like I lost sleep over it. But one cause is basically the body's inability to adapt to environment or to self. And then the cure is the body's ability to grow. That's it. I thought it was something like way more like dogmatic about chiropractic, and thank God it wasn't. But you can apply that to anything. So when we talk about chiropractic being a deductive science, we're always starting from major premise. We're always starting from principles, even if we're starting in innate intelligence, and then we're working down from there until we get to a specific. So when you can always start with the looking for cause and effect, as long as each step of the deduction is proper, you're always going to get your answer, and it's always going to make sense. So we can apply that to right now. So kind of circling back to the conversation I had with my parents, I was sitting on the floor, kind of like Dylan, and my parents were sitting on the couch, kind of like me and Nate right now. Dylan's sitting over there.
I'm on.
Yeah, I'm on. And yeah, I pretty much gave him that talk, which took about 15 minutes. And I had another 45 minutes until I finally got to like every step leading up to like why what's happening right now is BS. And it's just ideas that need to fall apart because they weren't rooted in like principles and laws. And you couldn't filter anything, even through like the second step of deduction, right? It was just like, none of it makes sense. So, right, we think of right now, like this is another part of it here. Germ theory versus terrain theory. So, germ theory is founded off of Koch's postulates, or Koch's postulates, I'm not even sure how to say it, K-O-C-H. And they tested on in boards, actually, in microbiome. And we learned it from Straub. It's 4 different postulates. It's like the rules or like the principles of what ultimately has led to pretty much everything right now in the medical world, but also germ theory. So first one is that if a microbe's present in an organism, then they express that disease, whatever that virus is, which we already know is bullshit because there's asymptomatic carriers. So you can literally not even read the next 3 and be like, no, I'm good. But the next 3, you can take that microbe out, put it in a petri dish or something, grow it. Third step, you can put it in someone else, and then they'll express that disease or virus or whatever the microbe is. And I think I blended 3 and 4, but you guys get the point, right? Improper deduction from there. And Koch or Louis Pasteur said I think he said on his deathbed that it's the soil, not the seed, right? Or it's not the seed, it's the soil. Well, either way, right? It's the environment, right? It's not the microbe, right? So you think about growing a tomato garden, since we have one in the backyard, which is awesome right now. It needs soil, it needs sunlight, it needs the right environment for it to grow, right? The seed, otherwise the seed just stays the seed forever. But it needs that. It's not that the seed is going to just magically become a tomato, right? It needs the right environment. So what Dede came up with was Dede's postulates. It might have been Dede's 4 postulates, and I don't know them verbatim, and I should have prepared that, but they're probably in here. And if they're not, they go a little something like this. It's abnormal performance has its causes. Shit, I really should find this. It's on my phone, but I'm recording. it's basically defining cause and effect, right? So are you gonna look it up right now? Yeah. So if someone wants to look it up, it's like abnormal performance has its causes. No, there we go. It starts with disease is not an entity, disease is not an enemy. Abnormal performance has its causes, and there's one more. But it's basically saying, hey, germ theory, like, no, like if someone's expressing something, right? If someone's expressing something from a microbe, a virus, bacteria, right? It's an abnormal performance of their normal function, right? It's disease. And disease is not an enemy. Like we see that. I mean, right now we're seeing that. But the war on fill in the blank has never worked because the only way to get rid of fill in the blank is to restore ease and health and coordination back in the body, right? You give the body what it needs, you give it time, you put it in the proper environment, you remove whatever it is that is causing it, if it's something from an environmental standpoint or a mindset standpoint, right? And then person gets well. So I do have some homework if anybody wants to. Anybody sees the mask on D.D. Palmer's statue again in Sid Square, take it off.
You would never wear that thing.
He would never wear it, right? I mean, he wrote, like, that's literally like the worst thing you can do. Like, that'd be like, I don't know, be like pissing on someone's grave. Seriously. Like, I saw a picture of it and I was like ready to leave work and drive to school. And like, I was like, hold on, like, don't, what do you do? Come on. So if you guys see that, probably have a little bit better background now on why that's like completely sacrilegious. So, yeah. We'll leave it at that. Yeah, last thing I really want to get into right now is we've talked about like balance in the system, we've talked about coordination, we've talked about ease. And there's one thing, like it's one of BJ's epigrams that you'll see, it's expect miracles, right? And that's something that when you walk in to take care of a patient or you go into your office once you guys are all practicing, I know you are. That's really important to keep in mind, but you also have to keep in mind that miracles are what's going to happen when people are living in proper accordance with nature, right? And when they're clear, and when there's coordination in their system, and when there's ease. And I mean, when that happens, yeah, I mean, some people can call just feeling normal and feeling 100% as a miracle, but I really don't know how so many people live their life just like in this like not 100% healthy, not dead state. Like they're just in the middle, right? And that's what, I mean, what we're fortunately seeing right now is a paradigm that has been dominant for a while. And we're seeing a lot of people our age, and it's not just chiropractors. We're seeing a ton of people our age that have taken their masks off and they're smelling bullshit. They're like, this doesn't make any sense. This isn't adding up. And we need something else, and we need a different paradigm, and we need a different way to think. And we need someone to come along, foreshadowing with us, right? And they're like ready for us. Dude, like every single person I've talked to between 20 and 35 outside of the Life West bubble or, through work, it's just been like, you just hit them with something simple, like one cause, one cure. People are like, yeah, like they want that. People are ready for that and they want it like yesterday. So this is the best time to have ever been a chiropractor. And it's going to stay that way for a long time. And we got to realize that like we have a lot of momentum, and all we have to do is like start really like digging into this, living like this, starting to think with proper deduction, like working down through that, and just starting to view our lives through that lens. And that's something that I really had to do when I graduated from school, because I mean, I already brought up the educated brain and innate brain thing, right? Like you get to the end of like the 3.5 year, however long it takes you to get through school, finish line, and you get to the end and you're just like, God, I have so much stuff in my head right now. Like I could explain chiropractic way better before I started school than I could at the end, which is like what? Like you just, huh? So I had to unlearn a lot of things and then re-dive back into this. So I was with a chiropractic friend this weekend, and he saw this in my card. He's like, do you still read that? He's like, do you still read green books? And I was like, I read it every morning. Like, just like I eat my greens in the morning. Like this is how I get going. And he was like, huh. So I had him read a little bit of this, and he's he practices Blair, and he's into the philosophy, obviously, like upper cervical stuff. But Yeah, it's important to stay dipped in this and to keep going with this. But whole point, you gotta unlearn things when you get done with school, and you gotta relearn. And right now, what's gonna happen with a lot of people outside of the chiropractic world, our patients, whoever we take care of, our loved ones in our life, they're gonna have to unlearn some things and relearn some things. And one of the people that's gonna plant the seed is all of us in the room. It comes down to not extremism, but just us staying rooted, staying like, no, sort of not getting emotional about it, not being like, you want to be chiropractic, you die, what cause, what cure. Like, we don't have to go there. But I think if not us, then who, right? And we can align with the right people and really start as small as we can, which is, you know, the person that's in front of us on the table. We get them balanced out. We expect miracles, which aren't really miracles. It's just natural. It's just what's supposed to happen. And then next, and then next, and then we keep going, and that makes better people, and that makes better families, and it makes better communities. And then when enough of us are doing it, that's momentum, and then we have momentum, and we make the world better. So I look back at certain things from school that I'm just like, man, like that was kind of corny, and I didn't really get it. And now I look back and like Life West's tagline or motto or whatever is creating a brighter future for humanity. And it's like, oh, like, hell yeah, right? So that's what I got.
I wanted to just throw something in there.
Sure.
To Alex's point, like people are looking for this right now. So as a student and as a chiropractor, it's like you don't have to read these things, these books, and like accept them as dogma. Put them to the test, first of all. But the people Alex is talking about, like people out there are putting these concepts to the test right now. And that's what's helping them smell the BS, as Alex would put it. And the advantage of you diving into these is that you get to then deliver the philosophy that they're starting to understand, that they're starting to accept. You can deliver it to them in a way that makes even more sense. And you can help guide them down that path. This is optional and extremely beneficial.
And long, and it never ends because you finish one and you always want.
Takes effort.
But
yeah, or just show up on Sundays.
Yeah, or show up. But I don't get any kickback. I don't have a promo code for this.
Yeah,
this isn't brought to you by Senate, but
just because we love it.
We'll post a link or whatever from where I got this from, and then you guys can get a copy. It takes like a week or so to show up, but there's.
We got them at the bookstore now.
Oh, do that? Yeah. Never mind.
Or talk to Alex.
That ends my report. I'm done. No. It's because I dove into Stevenson and I have a ton of highlights and tabs on it. It can get a little. Yeah, some of it can really go over your head. But yeah, just this helped. This clarified a ton, and yeah, you just simplicity over complexity, right? You get you can do a lot with the very like few principles and like starting from there and then working down. The rest of it's great and it's stories and it becomes the more you see it. When someone asks you questions, you're like, oh, this is the example that I would use, right? I'm in pain, like don't throw the smoke alarm out, like go start the fire, right? Like you just say things like that and it starts to make sense. So yeah, I don't know. What else you got? With questions?
Be willing to talk about it. Like if you're not getting something, it's probably because it's more general and more basic than you realize. Yeah, like the first time I read through the principles, I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Universal, what? But the more you go through them and you kind of dig in and you start to have conversations about them, you're like, oh, that's like the most basic thing that you could say about life. Period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Could open up to some questions. Is there any questions?
Improper or misused terms: chiropractic medicine, chiropractic position, diagnosis, manipulation, treat, Okay, sorry.
I think coming off of what you said, being that we're all in chiropractic school right now, that's one of the reasons why we don't necessarily aren't able to get to those answers right away, because all this scientific background that we're being taught right now, induction. So now we're looking at we're trying to make a super specific connection to certain things such as the principles, and we're not looking at it from oh, this could be actually a simple topic. You're looking at it it doesn't sound right. They're trying to confuse me. Why am I spending 4 hours on biochem and 1 hour on technique? Same reason of why am I trying to depict the major premise and understand something that's not, when in reality it's the most simple thing you can think of.
Was that a question or a statement? Oh no, that was great either way. I'll piggyback off of it. I would have answered it if it was a question, but I'll just add something since it's not. Going through school, it's important to always filter, even the smallest thing in biochem, stupid, filter through that same lens, and that helps. It's still there's stuff you're gonna learn, a lot of stuff that's useless, whatever. But just try to look at it bigger picture. And I had another thing I was going to add to that. Going through school, induction. What else were you saying? Technique, 1 hour. Oh, okay. Right, that sparked something in my head. So I was mentioning that me and the other two docs I work with went to a zone technique seminar last weekend in Berkeley. And zone isn't it's not taught in school. There is a club, I think. And if anything, it's the best educational technique for the patient in terms of them understanding the bigger picture of their health and getting non-musculoskeletal stuff. So in our office, we practice we always say 30% is non-musculoskeletal in nature. So we get people for digestive stuff, we get people for anxiety, and those are referrals from other patients, which is awesome. Neck pain, back pain, that stuff goes away. But what we're doing with the technique is balancing out systems or zones in the body, and then when those are balanced, right? You can't have a balanced system and perfectly good concepts and disease or these negative things manifest. So you can spin that however you want in school, but what I would say, the easiest way to not talk yourself in circles is to just come back to the one cause, one cure, right? And then, hey, when we get your body balanced out, you're going to feel perfect 24/7, or whatever it is you want to say. We're not treating them, but just go for it, say it, get them face down, or whatever it is, right? You don't have to say that much, and then people really appreciate that. So start simple. Start with cause and effect. Literally, if you start there, what's causing this? What are the effects? They're going to list off a bunch of effects, but you come back to the cause, and then you can figure out what the cure is, which is their body to be able to heal itself when it has coordination, it's in the right environment, and has the right resources. And that's it. Face down. Just keep coming back to that, right? And that's what I had to unlearn leaving school. You're oh, well, you have upper cross syndrome because it's you have pipe. It's they don't right? They're coming to you because they want something to be better in their life, and it's keeping them from doing something. So we can apply that however we want. And that was it's really easy because you can hear it from somebody, but then it comes down to you need to do it enough, and you need to have the confidence to be able to get it done. And that comes through repetition and making a bunch of mistakes. And I'm not trying to sound self-righteous at all, but there is a lot of you're going through school and you get the oh shit, did that go? You get a lot of uncertainty, and that just emanates, and then they feel it. They don't get well, rather than having the confidence and just going out and doing it and letting it flow, rather than all this bombardment of induction and an educated brain. So I don't know how I piggybacked off that, but I did. So it's very hot here. So. Yes, full boy.
Yes. One comment followed by one question. 2 comments. Good talk.
Thanks.
Second comment is the sort of opposition back in Louis Pasteur's day and in Koch's day, Claude Bernard. That was just so that people are clear on that there actually at that time were 2 diametrically opposed lines of thought and reasoning about just microbes and that it is really about the internal environment that is created by health or lack thereof, rather than from intrinsically from the microbe itself.
Right. So yeah, sorry, I'll let you get to your question, but I should have said this. It's on my note card, and I only have like 4 things on there. But resistive forces versus invasive forces. Right? When the resistive forces are greater, then you adapt and you level up. And when the invasive forces are greater, then who knows, right? But that's in the sophomore text of Stevenson, which is like, sophomore text is phenomenal. So yes, thank you for reminding me of that and fact checking me and teaching me something, because I don't know, I just see these people post on Instagram and I'm like, germ theory, good stuff. Thanks.
Yeah, awesome. And then the question is, you said that you have germ theory, and then there was another name for a theory that you like.
Terrain theory?
Terrain theory?
Yeah.
Like Earth.
Yeah,
terrain.
yeah, like the terrain, the environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that is essentially
So,
in contrast to germ.
Exactly, yeah. So terrain theory would be, I don't know, yeah, I guess I haven't really broke that, but it'd be like your internal environment being able to adapt to the external.
Nice. Is that created by DD or a chiropractor, or is that just?
I think it's just, I've seen people talking lately because it's like a hot button thing that people are, like, we don't, if we're applying this to something that's happening right now in the world, all the philosophy, science, and research is on the side of terrain theory. Pretty much nothing other than money is on the side. So,
Do germs exist though?
sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, COVID exists, but it's just like,
Yeah, it does.
but like, who knows? Like, I don't know. I'm not an epidemiologist, but yeah, of course it exists, but it's not.
It's not what causes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not
Right.
the one cause.
I'm sure it's on everybody here, and I want to touch everybody's skin and have everybody breathe on me, and that's how I get stronger, right? Like, so, let's touch skin. Yeah. So, anything else?
On that note, I'm gonna invite my co-host up, Hunter, to do the outro. You can stay right here.
Slide right over.
We're going to.
Oh, we didn't record.
Okay.
Oh, you scared me.
Oh, no.
Little heart attack right there. Well, thank you, Alex. That was awesome. Just want to let everyone who's live with us right now, following us, or watching us later on, tune in next week. We're going to dive into the articles 25 to 36 in the chiropractic textbook. I really appreciate everyone watching right now. Stay tuned for 33 Thursdays. We're going to have those up by 10 a.m. on Thursday. We're covering 7 through 12 this week. And lastly, I just want to say thank you for tuning in to Philosophy for Free, and just give a great big round of applause for Dr. Lee over here. Thanks everyone who showed up.
Dr. Alex.
Dr. Alex. Dr. Alex. From Boston.